The story begins with a man who is running in an icy white snowfield, while wondering what life truly means. But suddenly, he was shot by an arrow through his legs, stopping his momentum, therefore knocking him over. But now that he is lying on cold snow, he remembers that life is just like an egg. What is that supposed to mean, you may ask? It means no matter what you do, there is no meaning, just like how he fought till his wit's end. In the end, he was killed, and they have taken away his stolen relic, just like in the game. Now decapitated, a word took shape inside the fugitive's head, crying out about murder. Surprisingly, he was still able to respond, referring to the voice in his head as the mother of corruption, and telling her not to be angry, since it was necessary for him to die here. And the mother of corruption that communicates with him through telepathy is the dried hand who is crawling towards his body. Then it climbed up the fugitive's body and grabbed his collar. After that, the headless body slowly rose from the snowfield and slowly approached his decapitated head. Still, the hand was quite angry, so while he attaches his head, he clarifies to her that if it's the divinity within the relic she is worried about, she really doesn't have to, since he has already collected it, and now there's no reason for others to tail them. However, he did happen to lose some money. This statement of his surprised the hand quite so, as it couldn't believe that his follower was more troubled losing money than being decapitated. But before all this happened, he was an ordinary man, who lived an ordinary life, who liked playing games, and as he reached his late 20s, his life became too busy, and so it was tiring to play games. But it was a hobby that he really loved, so he compromised with reality, and decided to use a cheat while he played games, manipulating the save file using editor. He doesn't even remember the name of the game, or why he bought the game, but he kept playing anyways while he was using editor, up to the point where he changed his job to the priest of corruption, which was the reason he bought this game in the first place. And the evaluation of the priest of corruption play was very simple. The predefined difficulty level is terrible. The level of difficulty while playing is terrible. Performance is also poor. Surprisingly, this single line of evaluation made his heart beat a little faster, because it means that most people don't choose it, and he can't really help it, since his heart is racing whenever he plays this game. And around the time when all the materials for the job change were ready, he mechanically pressed enter while watching the job change quest, and as the materials disappeared one by one, the quest to change jobs proceeded in an instant. And the moment he pressed the yes button on the last job change quest, he fell into this game, becoming a priest of corruption. And now, he is with a hand that keeps screaming like a death metal singer, and this dried up hand is actually the goddess that he serves, the mother of corruption. But in fact, this is also a great development, as she was able to deliver her words only after she absorbed the divinity of the first holy relic. Until he took the first relic, she didn't say a single word to him, and she just wavered and conveyed her intentions with the best use of that shriveled hand. Of course, there were no important messages at all. It all began 5 years ago, when he woke up in this game. All he had was a uniform of the Church of Corruption and the Mother of Corruption's hand that was laying on his chest. And due to the large presence that he could feel connected to the hand, he was able to easily accept that he had fallen into this game pretty early on. Also, according to the game's description, the Priest of Corruption was a genetically enhanced human modified by drugs. As a result, he had enhanced physical capabilities, heightened senses, and a body that could only be killed by divinity. Thanks to that, he was still alive even though his head was cut off by the rangers who chased him earlier. Also, compared to the sensitive 5 senses, the part of the brain where the emotions moved seemed to be a little broken, so even if he had never been able to stand the sight of blood before, watching a gruesome scene like this had no effect on him. However, there was a fatal drawback, in that he became a body that could no longer able to feel, or even taste, anything. That's why, even if he wants to eat pork belly wrapped in kimchi, he knows that it would be impossible without his sense of taste. A few moments later, he entered the northern city of Guise, and went straight to Guise's mercenary guild, in order to get his ID impersonating a priest belonging to a different order, under the name of Marnak. After he got his ID, he asked the receptionist if there was any work that he could take on, to which she responded that they might have some work for a priest serving the goddess of preservation like him, but she asked him to wait for a moment, as she rummaged through the pile of papers. At the same time, he was reverently smiling as possible. without worrying about any consequence that may befall him after impersonating a member of the Order of Preservation, because if he was in a different order, the moment he impersonated a member of another order, his god would have become furious and marked him, a mark that only members of that order can see, a seal of punishment. However, his mother was benevolent in regard to impersonations like this, and the Order of Corruption was the enemy of all, and he, who was hated by all, was the mother of corruption's only follower. Suddenly the voice of the receptionist pulled him out of his thoughts, letting out a soft laugh while smiling broadly as she finally found a job for Priest Marnak. So he took the paper and quickly read the text. Luckily, he was already able to read and write the letters of this world the moment he fell here, so there was no need to study separately because of the comfortable conditions. And looking at it closer, this job requires hunting bandits or monsters, because recently, the number of farmers that have gone missing while heading towards Guis has slowly increased, and those who find the reason behind these disappearances and defeat it will receive 30 nips of silver per head. Even if they do not defeat anything, they will receive 1 nip of silver, and this job request came from the Lord of Guis himself. Then, he smiled as friendly as possible to the receptionist and spoke carefully, asking if he could receive part of the reward right now, which confused and surprised the receptionist simultaneously. Still, he was finally able to get a silver coin in advance, after hearing from the receptionist that even the priest should pay the penalty if he is late for his departure. Luckily that wasn't the case, since he was now with other mercenaries, but he couldn't wipe the smile on his face, as he remembered how the cute receptionist really likes to talk a lot. He even talks about her with his deity. As expected, she assumes that his follower fell in love, which he immediately denies, and if she keeps on saying that, he warns her that he will really get angry at her. Unexpectedly, one of the mercenaries called out his name, so he turned around and faced him, expecting trouble, but to his surprise, this dude was just excited to talk to him. Seeing that Marnak came from somewhere other than Guis, this guy who was named Pierre wanted to talk to Marnak about where he came from, but before Marnak could utter a single response, Pierre just continued talking, so Marnak could only sigh, as he encountered another chatterbox. Luckily, before he could continue another topic, Captain Galad called out to him to go up front, so he bowed to Marnak and left his side. Suddenly, his mother was thinking about murdering everyone again, to which he refused, because if all of them die, it'll become an issue for him, and if she doesn't have anything more to say, she should just shut the fuck up, because he, her son right now, is in desperate need of 29 silver nips, and would like to spend this winter in warmth. And with a slightly dropping voice, the mother of corruption was easily convinced and stepped down. Still, he couldn't stay mad at her for that long, so he just sighed, and immediately apologized for being a little too aggressive, so there's no need for her to be sad like that, to which the mother of corruption was quick to express her feelings. Seeing that she was now okay, he asked how many fingers she would rate everyone, instantly showing him their individual ratings, and the result was pretty normal. So it seemed like there was no one special, and what the mother of corruption's outstretched fingers meant was very simple, and that is, if he were to kill them and send them to the mother of corruption, he would be able to receive divinity according to the number of fingers they were rated. And if he manages to collect 10,000 divinity, he can earn 1 authority. Also, thanks to this divinity acquisition system, he was able to absorb the divinity of a holy relic, and he gained an authority. And it also means that there are now only 12 relics to go. This relic was important to him, since the mother of corruption told him that if he were able to collect the divinity of every relic, all his wishes would be fulfilled, and with just the thought of it, made him ecstatic, because, firstly, he would ask to regain his sense of taste. Suddenly, the voice of Pierre pulled him out of his thoughts, telling Marnak that the captain ordered not to bother him too much, and now he was embarrassed since he didn't realize it himself. Seeing that Pierre was apologetic, and it seemed like he didn't intend to be rude, Marnak responded with a kind smile, telling him that it was fine, and he shouldn't worry too much about it. However, as soon as he opens his eyes again, he sees that the captain is already dead, as several arrows were aimed at them. With this, Marnak didn't hesitate to grab Pierre by his collar and throw him out of the way, but because of this, he didn't get the time to evade, so arrows pierced him instead, instantly knocking him on the ground, while Pierre was in shock, seeing that Marnak died because of him. Now lying on the cold ground again, he sees that bandits were responsible for this surprise attack. And suddenly, his mother interacted with him, advising him to play dead and collect their divinity when he gets the chance, which he knows that it would be the easiest thing for him to do. However, he wasn't raised to be a cowardly bitch, and in the first place, he does things the hard way. So as soon as he picked up the sword, he immediately charged toward the archer, and killed him on the spot, shocking the bandits, as they saw their comrade's head separated from its body. With this, the captain told everyone to leave the priest to him, and all of them, come help him after they handle the rest of the survivors. Soon after, the captain lunges himself towards Marnak, to attempt a sneak attack. Luckily, Marnak has heightened senses, so he easily blocks his attempt, and seeing this guy's ugly face with a grin on up close, doesn't excite him even for a bit, so he swung his sword to knock his opponent's ugly face away from him. Now that he is a few feet away from him, he asks his mother to rank this son of a bitch, but the captain thought Marnak was talking to him, so he asks what the fuck he was saying, as he charges for another strike, clashing their sword multiple times, and with every strike, sparks flew, while Marnak kept silent, as he was still waiting for his mother's reply. Then, the dried-up hand stretched out 2.5 fingers, surprising Marnak, as he didn't expect a mere bandit to be on the same level as the ranger who slit his throat. Still, he couldn't do anything but smile at how unbalanced this game is, while the bandit launched another strike. However, the result was unexpected, as the sword of Marnak, cut in half, flew through the air and fell into the pure white snow. Now that the tables have turned, the captain of the bandits laughs at his situation, and tells him that this is why he had been relentlessly attacking his blade, because he knows that Marnak's sword is made of cheap iron, while his sword, on the other hand, was crafted from the smelted frost steel. With this, Marnak could only laugh as he accepted that he lost just because of a weapon diff. After that, the bandit concludes that there is nothing particular about this priest, so he decides to let him off, since they are planning for this to be their last job, and leave the area anyways. So he suggests that they just call it quits and leave while they are both smiling. And to be honest with himself, if that priest ran away without looking back, the captain of the bandits was not confident he could catch up. However, he didn't expect that this priest would just smirk at his polite suggestion, and provide another offer instead, telling him to stop being a bandit and leave this place immediately, and if they do, he will go easy on them. But, as expected, the captain of the bandits wasn't fond of the priest's suggestion. He even thought that he was joking right now, so he asked him if he was serious, and does he really think that they would just say okay and leave. Seeing that his suggestion confused the bandit, Marnak tries to clarify what he meant, but before he could even finish his sentences, an arrow hit Marnak's head, with such a clean hit, and the bandit laughed like a mischievous boy, as he looks at his subordinates, and jokingly told them that they're late. He thought the priest was going to kill him, which made them grin, and told his captain to stop being so dramatic, since he saw him split the priest's sword into two. Now that they are finished bantering with each other, he asks if they have killed everyone else, to which his subordinates respond that they made sure to kill every last one of them. But to their surprise, another voice caught their attention, asking them if they truly did kill everyone, which made the bandit captain and his men's faces filled with disbelief, as they saw the body that should have died rise from where he lies. Witnessing the sheer shock mirrored on their faces, Marnak's curiosity piqued, so he posed a question to the group, asking if this is their first time witnessing a person who had survived a headshot from an arrow. And with a determined demeanor, Marnak firmly grasped the arrow in question and proceeded to break it, using the act as a means to assert dominance, which was highly effective, as the faces of the onlookers became even more engulfed with shock than ever before. Nevertheless, despite Marnak's previous attempts to give them an opportunity for resolution, the situation had escalated to a point where irreversible harm had been inflicted. In response to their aggression, Marnak exuded a chilling aura that instantly scared the shit out of the bandit captain, and in that moment, it became undoubtedly clear to the captain that if they chose to remain idle and let Marnak cook, it would undoubtedly spell their demise. So without a moment's hesitation, the bandit captain ordered his men to shoot the living out of this priest, which was swiftly executed, with the projectiles tearing through the air, ruthlessly lacerating Marnak's flesh and causing blood to spray in crimson arcs. Still, Marnak didn't flinch even for a bit, as he continued praying, calling out to the mother of corruption. Meanwhile, the bandits found themselves depleted of arrows, their hearts sinking with despair as they came to the startling realization that Marnak was, in fact, a motherfucking monster all along. Recognizing the peril they were in, they quickly reached the unanimous decision to flee from this terrifying entity. However, their hopes for a successful escape were swiftly diminished as they discovered an impenetrable, invisible barrier obstructing their path, leaving them trapped and devoid of any means to escape their impending fate. And this was made possible due to a sacred authority bestowed upon the priest of corruption, which they must activate in order to unleash their formidable power, known as the line in which the living cannot pass. This mystical force served a dual purpose. It prevents the living enemies from getting away and conceals the divinity of corruption, and this is also why he really likes this authority a lot. Simultaneously, the captain of the bandits realized that it would be useless just to stand there waiting for someone to save them. So he swiftly commanded his men to unsheath their swords, urging them to try and slice through this barrier. But before he could utter another word, an unimaginable force swiftly descended upon the bandit captain, mercilessly crushing him in an instant. The suddenness of this event left his comrades in a state of sheer disbelief, as they witnessed the one responsible for this was an entity they weren't familiar with, and it appeared as though a monstrous being had materialized from the depths of their nightmares, and was now ominously towering over them, reducing their stature to that of insignificant ants. In the moment the monstrous entity let out a bone-chilling scream, the bandits' desperate hopes for it all to be a mere nightmare shattered, and with the barrier preventing them from escaping, they were left with nothing but tears and pleas, desperately hoping for someone to come to their rescue. In a last-ditch effort, they even apologized to the priest and promised to him that they will abandon their bandit ways forever in exchange for salvation. However, instead of mercy or reassurance, all they were met with was a chilling grin upon the priest's face, and with a sinister nod of approval, the priest permitted the monster to unleash its wrath upon them, sparing only their heads from the impending torment. A few moments later, he decided to go back and investigate the fate that had befallen his team. As anticipated, all that awaited him were lifeless bodies across the scene, and in the midst of this discovery, his mother's voice reached out, urging him to gather the essence of divinity. However, he refused, not because he was kind-hearted, but because if he collected divinity from their bodies would disappear, and if he does so, the guild members who come here to investigate will surely think that something's up. Suddenly, a gasping sound pierced through the air, immediately capturing his attention. To his astonishment, it was Pierre, struggling for breath and in a critical state. But despite the severity of the situation, Marnak, being a priest, knows it wouldn't be impossible to save this guy. So he decides to wrap this up and do his best to save Pierre, since he is sure that it will be helpful to his reputation. With this, he borrows the power of his mother again, in order to stop the progression of Pierre's wounds. Meanwhile, in a distant location, a woman clutched onto the precious relic they had successfully retrieved from a thief's hand. She then inquired about the fate of the individual who had dared to steal it. In response, the man relayed that the thief was beheaded on the spot. Regrettably, due to limited supplies, they were unable to recover anything else and had to return with only the relic. As the man finished his report, he detected a sense of unease emanating from the woman. Concerned, he called out to her, patiently awaiting her response. But much to his surprise, the lady abruptly instructed him to return, and from here on out, she is thinking of embarking on a pilgrimage. Taken aback by her sudden decision, he couldn't help but inquire if it was because of the prophecy, to which she confirms, and also there is someone she needed to meet, and she was this determined. Even if the prophecy was revealed to them 10 years ago, its words resonated deeply within her, since the prophecy served as a constant reminder that the impending end will wear the husk of life and come to fall upon the world. Meanwhile, Marnak finally arrived at Gaiza's front gate, and the guards who noticed his presence rushed to work, helping him take care of the body he was carrying. After he carefully gave Pierre to them, the cute receptionist was also there to greet him, informing him that he may return now, since she already received permission from the guards. As they entered the city, the red-haired receptionist expressed her surprise, admitting that based on Marnak's appearance alone, she would have never guessed he possessed such strength, which made Marnak blush in response to her kind words. As he felt a sense of validation, The receptionist then shifted the conversation, addressing the heads Marnak held in his hands, noting that they seemed to be the root of their troubles, so rather than carrying it around, she thinks it would be better if their guild held onto it for now, which Marnak agreed wholeheartedly, so without hesitation, he willingly handed over the heads that he was holding. Now that was settled, she asked if he has anywhere to sleep, because if he didn't have a place to stay, and if it's fine with him, he was more than welcome to sleep at her place, completely using that forbidden riz, capturing the heart of a priest, while the mother of corruption, on the other hand, wasn't too happy seeing such a display of bitchery, as she was thinking of murdering this girl on the spot.